Praise, glory, and honors most certainly due to the Most High Elohim of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I want to say peace to each and every one of you in the name of His Son, Yahushua Mashiach, who we know as Jesus the Christ. It's always a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you to bring a message containing His Word, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so outside today. So I figured I'd go ahead and do the message from outside. And this message is regarding one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life, and that is a mate. You know, if you're going to walk this path, if you're going to try to walk a righteous path, it is very important who you decide to walk that path with. And the Bible warns you about choosing incorrectly. Okay, so, and I want to deal with something you hear often when people talk about being unequally yoked. And oftentimes you hear it's used in an inappropriate way. For example, you may have a woman, for example, who says, well, I make $100,000 a year, and he works at the post office and he's only making $75,000. Well, we're not equally yoked because he makes $25,000 less a year. That is not what the Bible's talking about when it says unequally yoked. It's talking about spiritually your walk and who you're walking with. Alright, so let's take a look at that. I want to pick it up in the first example of being unequally yoked, in another place that is often misinterpreted, and that is Genesis the 6th chapter. In Genesis the 6th chapter, that's a beautiful day today. In Genesis the 6th chapter, this is prior to the flood. Notice what it says here. This is Genesis 6, and I'm going to pick it up at verse 5. Actually, verse 1. It says, and it came to pass, when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. So when you start to see man began to multiply a lot more, it says in verse 2, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Okay, so now these sons of God, in the Bible, when you hear the word or the phrase sons of God, you must qualify what that's referring to. Sometimes it could be referring to angels, as you find in Job, the 1st and 2nd chapter. Or it could be referring to men who are righteous men, as it is here. Some would say, well, it's talking about giants in verse 4. And so that must be the sons of God. But the Lord tells you in the gospel according to Matthew that the angels neither marry nor are given in marriage. So, you know, that's would discount them. This isn't Greek philosophy, okay? So angels don't lay with women, according to the text. So what you have is some righteous men dealing with some unrighteous women. Well, where did these unrighteous women come from? Well, if you go back a little further in the book of Genesis, you find two basic lineages. You have the lineage of Abel, and you have the lineage of Cain. Alright, we know that Cain killed Abel, thus destroying that righteous seed, that righteous lineage or seed, and that was reestablished with Seth. Okay, so what you had with those from Seth's lineage dealing with those from the other lineage, which was Cain's lineage. So it said the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. So you could infer that you have righteous men dealing with unrighteous women, and what happened is that evil began to spread. Verse 5, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. So how did that come about? Because when you entangle your life with somebody else that's doing wickedness, what are you going to do? You're going to end up doing wickedness. It's just like when you were growing up and your parents told you, hey, I don't want you hanging around this particular individual. I don't want you hanging around this kid. Why? Because this kid is stealing bikes. He's disrespectful to grown folks. He's failing in school. You know, he's doing all these things that your parent doesn't want you to be engaged in. And if you're around him, you're going to end up doing the same things. So it's not rocket science. So there's no more intermingling of a life than with marriage. When you marry somebody, your lives are intermingled. And if that person is worshiping falsely, you know what tends to happen? You end up worshiping falsely. And that's why it's important when you're choosing a mate to choose somebody who is dealing in righteousness as well. And even that is on certain levels. Okay? Everybody's not on the same level of their understanding or on their walk. So, spiritually speaking. So, you need to be mindful of that when you going to choose a mate. You know, I've had instances in the past where people call you for counsel and they ask, you know, hey, I want about who they're going to marry. And they'll be trying to walk a righteous path and they say, hey, I want to marry this person. And I say, okay, who is that? And this person is, you know, I'll ask, was this person a believer? Who is it? No, they don't believe. So why would you start your life as far as marriage with somebody who doesn't believe? And when you ask them that, you know, you can hear crickets. They get offended because a lot of times people want to be with somebody, and I understand that. You know, most people aren't built to be by themselves. You know, but at the same time, why would you start your life off with somebody who doesn't believe? They're literally celebrating Easter, Christmas, Sunday worship, literally dealing in paganism. You know that that's wrong, and they know what you believe, but you want to marry them. That doesn't make any sense, right? And what is that going to breed? That's going to breed wickedness. What about your kids? Now, Paul talks about if you're already married, you coming into the truth, and then somebody, you know, your spouse doesn't believe. He talks about how to deal with that, but that's different from you starting your life off with you knowing better, and then you want to deal with somebody who is not a believer. That doesn't make any sense. And you see this principle throughout the text. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy, another place that is oftentimes misinterpreted. But this is Deuteronomy 7 and verse 1. It says, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. When the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them, and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Notice what it says here. So this is when the children of Israel are going into the land. It says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. Now, is it because of the skin color? Is it because of something like that? Why does he say this? Verse 4. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. You see that? They'll cause you to worship falsely. Now, the greatest example of this taking place occurred with the wisest king to ever live is King Solomon. Let's go to 1 Kings the 11th chapter. 1 Kings the 11th chapter, and notice what it says here in verse 1. It says, but King Solomon loved many strange women. Now when it says strange, it's saying foreign women. So it says, but King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites. So, you know, these nations, and notice what it says in verse 2, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you. And he tells you why. Is it because of skin color? No, he said, for surely, he said, for surely they will come in unto you, for they will surely turn away your heart after these gods. Then it says, Solomon clave unto these in love. Notice how many wives he had in verse 3. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. And that was the problem. These women turned away his heart from following the Lord. Notice what happened. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build an high place to Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burned incense and sacrificed unto other gods. Now you consider this. This Molech, they were sacrificing children unto Molech. And here Solomon is making edifices to these false deities. So that's what happens or can happen when you intermingle your life with somebody who is not a believer. Then there were consequences for this. Verse 9. And the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods. But he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, Forasmuch as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee and will give it to thy servant. So the kingdom was split because of what Solomon did. So you see the consequences of that. But notice, this is not, I want to make it clear, this is not about ethnicity. It's about who's going to serve the Lord. I'm going to show you an example of that. Let's go to Ruth. See, it's not the person's ethnicity. It's about who's going to serve the Lord. And if you actually study Torah, you understand that marriages, because some people would apply Deuteronomy 7 to, I've had a number of brothers ask me, well, I'm married to a Gentile. Should I get a divorce? Well, the question is, first of all, what's going on? Is that Gentile of a person of another nation, is that person serving the Lord? You understand? So now that's the first thing you should ask yourself before you even consider anything else. Because I know people that are, it is likely that they are of Israelite descendants of Israel, and then their wife or spouse is of another nation, and their spouse is trying to serve the Lord of us, trying to serve the God of Israel. So then, why would you get rid of that person? And then when you further understand as far as Torah, you see instances where they had laws where how they were supposed to follow if, for example, they were to marry somebody else under certain circumstances. You see the war brides, etc. So it's not about you marrying somebody per se because of their ethnicity. It is because of who they're going to worship. Okay, and notice what it says here. This is the Ruth. This is the book of Ruth, and I want to read this here because in the book of Ruth, you had Naomi, who was an Israelite, and she had two sons, and her two sons, they married women of Moab. Both her sons died, so she's left with her daughters-in-law, one Orpah and one Ruth. Orpah went back. She told them both to go back. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law Naomi and went back unto her people, because she's like, hey, I don't have any more sons. You know, the woman didn't have a man. It wasn't like you can go down, I'm gonna go get my LPN, I'm gonna become an RN or a nurse practitioner, I'm gonna go back to school, get a degree in psychology, or or I'm gonna even drive a truck. You got women doing all kind of things today as far as occupations, whatever it is. They didn't have those opportunities. To be without a man oftentimes meant destitution. It can mean prostitution to survive. So what she did was she told them to go back. I don't have any more sons, and if I did, she said she was too old to get married. And then she said, and have a son, and if she did, what, you gonna wait for them to grow up? And so she sent Orpah back, but then Ruth had a different disposition. Notice, and Ruth is not an Israelite, but notice what Ruth says. This is Ruth, the first chapter, and verse 15. Well, verse 14, I'll pick it up there. I've spoken about some of this already. It says, and they lifted up their voice and wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. And she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. So Orpah's gone. She's telling Ruth, you need to follow. What did Ruth say? Verse 16, and Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. So what is she saying? She's going to take hold of the covenant. And she did that, and she married Boaz. And and what did they say to her? This is not an Israelite woman, but she's taking on taking hold of the covenant. And it says here, I'm in chapter 4 and verse. I'm gonna pick it up at verse 10. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife. Now this is Boaz speaking. To raise up the name of the dead, because this was the duty of brothers of the Levirate law that was fulfilled when she got married, upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place ye are witnesses this day. So Boaz made the arrangements to where he would marry Ruth, verse 11, and all the people that were in the gate, and the elders said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come into thine house like Rachel and like Leah. Wait a minute. So they said, let her be like Rachel and Leah? How so? Which two did build the house of Israel? And how did they build the house? These women built the house of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, by having children. They built his household through procreation. He said, and do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. But this is a Moabitess, but she was righteous. And it said, and let thy house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the woman said unto Naomi, blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of life, and a nourisher of thine old age. For thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. And Naomi took the child, and laid it in her bosom, and became nurse unto it. And the woman, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, there is a son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. And David is the father of Solomon. You see. Alright, I'll keep reading it. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez begat Hezron, and Hezron begat Ram, and Ram begat Aminadab, and Aminadab begat Nahshon, and Nahshon begat Solomon, and Solomon begat Boaz, and Boaz begat Obed, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David. So again, what do you find? It's not about your ethnicity, it's about who is going to serve the Lord. Okay? And what will happen oftentimes, you see another example is in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah, as what took place with Solomon, when they attached themselves to these people. The problem was that the people they attached themselves to, they were not going to worship properly. Okay, so that's why they divorced those women. They put, they divorced those women because, again, it's about righteousness. So if you're walking a path as Israel was supposed to be walking a path of righteousness, who you marry is pivotal. Because if you marry somebody who's worshiping falsely, you have a problem. It's the last place. I'm in 2 Corinthians, the 6th chapter. Because here Paul makes the point. He says in verse, and this actually should be done in general even, there's certain things you just shouldn't be involved with other people in that are non-believers. Now obviously, it's not that you on a job or something like that, well, I can't be around here, it's a bunch of non-believers. That's not what it's talking about. When you intermingle your life in certain endeavors or certain paths like marriage, you want to be mindful of who you do that with. This is 2 Corinthians, the 6th chapter, and verse 14. It says, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath Christ with Belial? Or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel? And what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God. As God hath said, I will dwell in them, and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. So what should you do? Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive them. And people have all kind of things to say about people with ethnicity, but notice this is to the Corinthians. You see, so it is, so bottom line, you want to be mindful of the people who you claim or you decide to walk this path with within the institution of marriage, because the wrong person can lead you down an entirely different path. You want to walk that path together as believing in the Most High, because marriage is hard enough, let alone you're dealing with the trials and tribulations of life. You're dealing with quite frankly, what is marriage? What marriage is it can be difficult, let alone you got somebody who's not a believer. So with that, brothers and sisters, you need to consider that. And if you're not in that position, you're not married already, you need to really not choose somebody to be with somebody that is walking in falsehood. And don't deceive yourself. Don't lie to yourself saying this person's gonna believe when they're faking it. Because I've seen that a number of times where people just fake it long enough to where they can get married, get those nuptials, and then next thing you know, and they're not keeping the Sabbath anymore. That was never their intent. They just wanted to marry that person, and they really had not truly expressed true faith. So with that, brothers and sisters, just be mindful, because salvation is on the line. With that, so it's my prayer that you were edified.